Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, a Song of Ice and Fire 2, except it's Hot D 1. I was going to say co-host switcheroo, but that's not even true either, because we're not switching. You know what? We're just going to say this is Hot D, Season 1, Episode 5, We Light the Way. And in this episode, everybody is so messy. So messy. Sometimes figuratively, sometimes literally, with their body fluids all over the floor. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So, this is a lot, this one. This is a lot, this episode. And I had said that they were probably going to go ahead and do the mushroom thing. And they did more mushroom than mushroom did. They just decided that they were going to be like, what mushroom said definitely happened. And also, the things that the Septon who wrote this said also happened. Or the Maester or whoever it was. I can't even remember now. They're just going to do all of it. They're doing all of it. Which is actually kind of brilliant. And I am like starting to be like, you know what? All right, show. You're winning me over. I got to say that. There is so much dumb shit in this episode. And I'm just like,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
100%. I had, you guys listening know, that I was already kind of on board with the show, and have been enjoying it for what it is, which I think, having not read this book, I was in a really good position to be very open to whatever the show was going to give me. At one point during this episode, I actually said, "Oh, is this what we're doing?" And then I had like a moment, and then I was like, all right then, okay, let's do it then.
It's when you go from lounging on your couch to sitting up straight and being like, oh, all right, I guess you need my attention. So, all right, let's start off with the opening scene, which is Daemon Targaryen.
My God.
It's his wife, Lady Rhea, and she is going to go out hunting, and this dude is asking her if she's going to go hunt rabbit in this like very quiet sort of condescension to me. This felt like he was talking down to her, and she was annoyed by it. Because when she says deer, he says something like, "Oh, a noble quarry," or something.
Yeah,
I'm like, sir, what are you doing?
It's going to be a fine challenge.
That's the one.
It's funny too because we find out later how well regarded she was for her prowess in hunting and in writing, right? So the fact that he's talking to her like that is a little bit weird. I'm not really exactly sure how to read it because it doesn't seem in line with what everybody says about her. But
I'm wondering if he knew what she was heading into at all, but I don't think so because nobody seems to be to have any evidence beyond just the obvious suspicion.
Right. This first of all, we made a joke last
to, like,
week.
Get a connection with her that was like romantic since Daemon's not there. Is he trying to weasel his way in? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, maybe. Like he offers, to keep her company, and she is not interested.
She sure is.
So I'm not exactly sure where he is coming from, but it seems clear that wherever he's coming from, she is not here for, and almost to the point of being a little bit annoyed, like the interaction she just had with him is like indicative of how they always interact, and she's just like not in the mood for it. But I know so little about this man that I have no idea what that is about. I don't know. Maybe he's been sniffing around for quite some time because her husband's been absent. Like, is that a thing that's going on, or what? We made a joke last week about Lady Rhea being like Maris.
Yes.
And then she shows up in this episode, and I was really excited to meet her. And you know, the introduction of her is pretty badass, and then it's over in like 2.5 minutes.
It sure is.
Yeah.
So yeah, she rides around the corner, and there we have Daemon standing there like the biggest fucking drama queen with his little. We were talking about Assassin's Creed last week, but he is like Assassin's Creed fucking cosplay right now. And he is walking toward her with his head down and his like silence, and just looks at her. And she says, "What brings you to the Vale?" And when she says that, she sort of stops and looks over her shoulder like she's already suspicious something's up. And
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, she does a lot more talking than he does in this interaction. And she is really quick with the insults, you know. Why are you here? Are you here because your brother, you know, cast you aside? And then she suspects that he means her no good.
Yep.
Pretty quickly.
Yep.
Just seemingly based on the fact that he's here. You know?
Yep.
And she makes the connection. I was not certain what was happening with her horse here. I am not a person that knows a lot about horses and how they behave. I've ridden them a couple of times, but not in any manner that required me to have any knowledge about it. You know, it's just plopped on top of one.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot figure out what the fuck is going on with Daemon and this horse that would cause it to react like that so quickly with what seems very little actual action. You know?
So he steps towards it, and he has his hand out and sort of like pushes the horse back a few steps. And
yeah, the horse reacts to his presence by backing up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he doesn't actually ever even touch it.
And she senses this danger and reaches back for her bow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a weird moment where when she reaches for the bow, the direction of the camera is really odd here. And it's like super hard. So he has his hand out to the horse.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, it almost looks like he taps the horse on the head. But again, the camera's facing in such a way that you can't see the horse's head. It's just the direction that he seems to sort of slap a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't cause the horse to rear up. Then she sees the look in his eye and is like, oh, wait, I think I know what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And reaches back. Of course. Now I've got buffering. I'm in the middle of analyzing the scene by scene, play by play, and they're going to buffer me. This is disgusting. This is America. I'm supposed to be able to
buffering
do this.
In 2022?
You know? Like,
your whole service provider is canceled.
Okay, sure. And I refresh and it's like, well, you want the sound on now, right? No, I do not. Ominous music playing. So yeah, she grabs her bow, and as she does, the horse seems to rear for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything.
Yeah, I heard
why this happened.
Conversations floating around, like, you know, I try to avoid as much as I can, but this shit is just fucking everywhere. And luckily for me, the majority of people having conversations around the show that I see that just sort of pop up in my feed, especially now that Facebook is really pushing sort of suggested groups and pages. So things that I don't follow will show up in my feed, right? So basically anything that has to do with Game of Thrones is popping up in my feed now. so I'm seeing conversations, but luckily a lot of the people having the conversations don't really know what they're talking about.
Gotcha.
So I'm not getting spoiled in like any real ways that I would be worried about. But I did see people trying to say that the horse could smell the dragon nearby. The Daemon's dragon was nearby because he obviously flew to the Vale on this, mission.
Oh.
But I don't really know what to do with that because Daemon probably walks around smelling like dragon all the time. And is this just how, is that just how horses react? Like everywhere he goes, horses are rearing because he smells like dragon.
Make any sense.
So, and then some people were like, well, maybe the horse sensed the dragon was nearby, which is another question for me because people are assuming
nearby and they live in King's Landing.
Right? Yeah, right. And also people are saying, well, obviously Daemon flew to the Vale. But can you be stealthy when you arrive on a dragon? I feel like he doesn't want anyone to know that he was here, right? So he could, presumably have an alibi that no, I was at Dragonstone when that shit went down. What are you talking about? But you can't just slip into the Vale on a dragon unnoticed, can you?
I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so either, but maybe you can. But that seemed highly unlikely to me.
Maybe if you stay really low to the ground, I don't know.
Maybe. Also, you have to make sure that they're extra quiet, and they seem like they want to screech every time they're flying. That's just how they get down. So how do you tell your dragon, I need you to be super quiet because we're not supposed to be here right now. So yeah, I don't know, but whatever is going on here, the end result is that her horse rears and she goes flying off the back and is it looks like paralyzed, right? Immediately, even though there's not a lot of pain, she's not in, you know what I mean? She's
not screaming or crying. Yeah,
exactly. And then
this is when she says, I knew you couldn't finish, Craven. And he bends down and gets a boulder, a
sizable rock.
And what I wanted to know was, are you really going to leave her alive, Daemon? Did that seem like the smart thing to do?
Oh no, he was going to get that rock anyway, whether she said that shit or not.
Do you think so?
I
don't think so.
I don't think he was just going to leave her there injured, but completely aware of who had injured her. That doesn't make any sense at all. Was he hoping that she would just die before help came? Is that what you think?
That is what I thought, because when she says, I knew you wouldn't finish, he comes to a stop and turns and looks at her before he picks the rock up. So I interpreted that as him being like, oh, really? Let me show you. But your assertion was the timing just happened to line up when she said that and when he picked the rock up. It
really never occurred to me that he would just leave her there alive.
It's not the smart thing to do, but also people are dumb sometimes.
I think maybe it just it never occurred to me that he would be that ridiculously dumb. But yeah, I mean, the moment, the way it's done and the timing of it, it definitely does look like, oh yeah, you said what? Okay, watch this. But I really do feel like that was about to happen either way.
Gotcha.
He went there to kill that bitch. He wasn't just gonna.
So, and yeah, everybody was sort of confused by this on the interwebs because he made such a point about talking about how his wife is ugly. And then we see her for the first time and she's very pretty.
Yeah, she is.
And it's just okay, she seems a little bit prickly, but good.
Well, I mean, she makes the thing about are you going to finally come consummate the marriage? And you know what? She says to him the line about the sheep being prettier, which is what he said about her when he was at the small council.
Yep.
So how does she know he said that exact thing? Is this something he's just been saying for years? Or did someone tell her he said that?
I am assuming somebody told her.
So then the question is, whoops.
I mean, things that get said in the small council tend to get out. There's just so many spies. There are people taking official records. There's fucking servants in and out, you know, like,
yeah.
And that exact line about the sheep being prettier is in the book. So that's part of the official record that Septim was putting down.
Gotcha.
Apparently.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So, yeah, we cut from that to a fish getting its head chopped off and King Viserys hurling his guts up over the side of the ship because he is not made for the sea, which probably I am also not.
Doesn't appear to be that this man was made for anything.
Oh my God, that's the most brutal thing anybody has ever said about anybody. Wow.
Am I wrong, though?
Oh, man.
It's like the entire universe is reacting poorly to his very existence. Everything is in opposition to him. It is wild. The chair that he sits in, you know, the child that he has, the wife that he has, the hand that he has. He can't even ride on a ship without, you know, throwing up on the or over the side. You know, he's passing out everywhere, just dropping to the ground.
Oh my God.
At one point when he is being tended to by the maesters, who I have, like, I'm starting to wonder about that, his maester, Melios, or whatever his name is, who was, like, poo-pooing the new herbs that this other maester has that he thinks will be more effective, and the guy is just like, no, we do leeches around here. But you can see Viserys's arm, and I don't know what the fuck's going on there, but it is no good.
It is no good.
Like, this
I've
this
seen
poor
some
man.
suggestions about grayscale, but I don't see him having been able to contract that. I think it's just meant to be like gangrene, perhaps. Or
I'll be honest, I couldn't tell how much of it was the actual condition of his arm and how much was whatever they were putting on top of his arm to treat it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I couldn't tell if, like, there was a layer of some kind of goop on his arm and the leeches were underneath it, or if that was just how his arm looks now. I really hope that it was just like the medicine, because if that is what he is walking around with under his sleeve, sir.
Yeah, that is rough. So we have him throwing up. We have Rhaenyra being sort of led away by Ser Criston. There's no dialogue between the two of them here, and this is when we cut to the Red Keep and Alicent saying goodbye to her father.
Yeah.
And her dad basically is like, wake up. What do you think is going to happen to your children if she is, like, remains the heir? She will have no choice but to kill your kids, because how can she be the heir with them still alive prowling around?
Yeah. And now we're getting to, you know, I had been wondering in the previous episodes, like, how we get to where it feels like we're going, right? Which is going to be a battle between Rhaenyra and her claim and Alicent and her children's claim. And I had even said before, when Otto was talking to Alicent in a previous episode, and she was like, when he's like, don't you want your son to be king? And she's like, no, you know, Rhaenyra's already going to be queen. I don't want him to steal his sister's birthright and all that. This assertion, this sort of plea to her instinct to protect her children, this feels like, okay, is this going to be how she ends up really engaging in this battle? And he finally found a way to frame it that would kind of get through her brain, because she just really was kind of being in denial about her entire situation.
Right.
So, and then, of course, we get when she finds out later on, you know, that Rhaenyra lied right to her face.
Yeah.
So you put all those pieces together.
Although I have some things to say about that scene because I don't really like it.
Which one?
We'll get there.
Her and Criston?
Later on when she's talking to the little finger Junior.
Oh, Littlefinger Jr.
Yeah.
You guys, I told Natasha today that I figured out why Larys's face bugs me so much. And it's because he looks like a who.
She texts me in all caps. He has who face. And I'm like, you're going to have to help me out here.
It is something that I have seen, a couple times in real life where I'll meet somebody and I'll be like, that motherfucker has who face. And I've said it to myself so often that I low-key forgot that it is a ridiculous thing to say to another person and that they would have no idea what the fuck I was even going on about. So,
oh man.
But he does. He looks just like a fucking Dr. Seuss who person. And I find it's just really, really upsetting. I don't care for it.
There's really something going on with the faces of some of the folks they have cast this season. And that's not to say the casting is bad, but I feel like Rhaenyra has a really weird face. And I think it may be that she got a nose job and her nose is just a little bit too small for her face now. And maybe that's not it, but there is just something about her face that feels like a little unbalanced. It might be that because she's got like the super blonde eyebrows and lashes that she has like sort of the hairless face that's like kind of alien looking.
Yeah, she's got like, what do you call that? Is that an underbite?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, well, the faces of various people I have been just like, Daemon is his whole own thing. Because like you guys know how I feel about his damn face.
People keep saying he has a face like a foot, and I don't mean to laugh, but
I started that.
Did you say it too?
No, I am the one. I said that shit. I was on another podcast with you where I said, the one who has a face like a foot, and you instantly knew who I meant. And I would like to say that I am the originator of it. It spread from me, and I am entitled to some sort of points. Some sort of internet points in response to this. I'm
gonna give you 5 points like we used to give Miles when we did House
exactly.
Exactly.
So yeah, this conversation with her dad also, like, she's bummed that he has been fired, of course.
Yeah.
And can't really do anything about it. And there's just a whole sense here of him. He says, "You made it possible for me to be fired. You chose Rhaenyra." Which, yeah, I suppose she did.
She did. She told the king that she believed that Rhaenyra was telling the truth. And basically, she didn't say it, but if you think Rhaenyra is telling the truth, you're basically saying you think your father is lying. Or if you want to be, diplomatic, your father is mistaken or got wrong information, But at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. You had two different stories and you believed Rhaenyra over your father's account. So, yeah, that's not going to sit well with her, I think.
Yeah.
I think she's going to feel a way about that and feel a certain amount of guilt and a lot of feeling like she got finessed, which she kind of did.
Got finessed is a very, mild way to put it. But yeah, I suppose so. Got finessed, yeah.
Yeah.
So then we go to the inside of one of those fucking carriages with Viserys and Rhaenyra barely talking to one another. She's determinedly looking out the window away from him. And he looks like shit. He's still sweating and coughing.
He looks so bad this whole episode. Terrible. And I know it's just going to get worse because clearly he is not meant for this world much longer. But he just, he's so pasty, He's got like you said, flop sweat.
Fluffs, that's so funny to me. I don't know why, but that always feels like somebody just made that up on the spot.
He just, even the way he's standing, he's like hunched over. His whole presence is sickly.
Yes, it is. So,
and they show up.
Where they're going to visit the Valerians.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks that he is going to be getting greeted by Corlys.
The way he should be. He's the fucking king.
He's the king.
And he showed up and it was like a daughter. And was it the brother or an uncle? Is it the two kids that come out?
It's
Laena
the two kids, yeah.
Yeah. And the fucking hand is like, what is the meaning of this? And I, for one, was like, yeah, what the fuck is the meaning of this?
Yeah, this was really some ballsy shit here. Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah. To this is so disrespectful and so out of the norms of like decorum and how we're supposed to behave, that if Viserys wasn't so fucking desperate, what he would have done is turned right back around and got on his ship and let his people like hold Corlys accountable for that action, however that looks, right?
Yep.
Like a very serious infraction, whether that means stripping him of some kind of power or a title or fucking something. But nope.
It's like on behalf of the king, his hand strong is like outraged, but Viserys himself just keeps on sort of hand waving things and just, it's no big deal. And like, this is the kind of thing that I would also be tempted to do because, of how I am. But there is a point to all of that. There is a respect implied with all of that. That if you just act like that doesn't matter, it's undermining all of your authority and the way that everybody else sees you. And he just really doesn't seem to appreciate that aspect of it.
It makes him look so weak. And he already, without the politics, he already looks weak, right?
Yeah.
And then politically, we know he's weak, which is why he's here about to propose this marriage. And then to let them just disrespect him in front of his, his whole squad.
His whole squad.
It is, I'm trying not to use the word crazy, but it is not
well thought out.
Not well thought out. It is not a good look. And you're right. Viserys seems to feel like, I don't care what people think, how things look. I just care about the result. But you have to care how it fucking looks. That's a big part of the job is perception.
Yep. Yeah, this is something that comes up in so many things that I cover. Characters who think that they're being progressive minded by not holding up certain traditions or expectations, and they really believe that means that they're bringing themselves down on a level with the people in a way that will be respected. And like to a point that will sometimes be true if you like pitch in here and there in something that would normally be considered beneath you. That kind of thing is different than tolerating disrespect. That's you choosing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just how much the theater of it all really matters. And in Dandelion Dynasty, which is one of my favorites, and it's very like Song of Ice and Fire-ish in terms of the intensity of the politics and everything. But the king at one point, the emperor really, wears a crown that has a curtain of cowrie shells that hang in front of his face, so that when he is in court and they are petitioning him, nobody can see his expression and his reaction to anything. And that way they can't gauge his response or opinion on anything. And I was just like, that's kind of genius, actually. Just like straight up cutting them off and making them speak into the abyss, sort of.
Right.
And like their peers are around hearing it and they can see how their peers react. But as to how he feels about it, they just have to hope that the actual value of their argument is good enough. But anyway, I just find that stuff sort of fascinating because the appearance of power is really what matters.
Yeah. And
more than anything,
the thing that tells us that too in this moment is that Corlys is over here understanding the theater of it. Right. So Corlys is engaging in this sort of like, I'm going to make you come to me and I'm going to be seated as you walk into my, my hall, because it makes it look like I am the one with all the power. He understands the theatrics of this moment.
Yep.
And he's leveraging it. And he kneels. Of course, he kneels when Viserys actually shows up. But the fact is, they walk in and Corlys is sitting on his own little mini throne deal. And the optics of that whole encounter is not strong for Targaryen.
It is embarrassing. And like later on, Rhaenys is like, it was really unseemly for him to come and like us to marry.
Yeah, she was like, he was like, no dignity.
Yeah.
Like, ouch, fucking ouch. And then of course it's like, did I overstep? Did I extend myself too far? Because he really fucking went for it in this moment. He really went for it. He was trying to right all the wrongs of history in this moment. And I wasn't mad about it.
This is like the whole thing with Viserys, like, oh, well, there's been a lot of bad blood and mistakes have been made, but I'm going to try and fit. And it's just, look, I understand that you need to like spin it to make it seem like it's not what it is. But we all know you're desperate. Your daughter's a menace. And you don't even really want to do this because he like clearly views it as sort of making her do something that the whole thing was he was trying to give her a choice in it all. And she just kind of squandered that, So I just feel like there's still a sense in him of it didn't have to be like this. And now I have to do it this way. And what the fuck?
Yeah.
But
also, I hope he's feeling a little bit of fucking, this is your fault because you should have just married Laena a couple years ago. And none of us would be here right now.
And we would have been fine, but no.
So there's a definite kind of, eating crow for Viserys in this moment, where he has to come back to them and basically admit that the idea that Corlys had 5 years ago was the better idea. And I should have just done it then. But before we get to that, it cuts back to King's Landing. After their where Corlys is before they go into the house, it cuts back.
Yeah. And we have Lord Larys, and he is out here. He's the son of the Hand, one of the sons of the Hand.
He is Lionel Strong's other son. So the other one is Harwin, who is like could get it. And I am really confused, you guys. I'm going to come right out and say it. I don't get what's going on here because his father is Hand of the King. And I really like Lionel Strong so far. I mean, maybe I'm being duped, but I thought he's been giving pretty good counsel to Viserys. So maybe he's playing a long game that I just don't see and don't get. But like, why does he have a son that's so messy and seemingly about to start some shit that I think would go against what his father seems to be invested in?
What do you think his father is invested in?
Well, I thought that his father was like a true ally to the Targaryens and really like supported Viserys and supported his choices and even making Rhaenyra queen or making her heir. But now I'm starting to wonder if I've been bamboozled. Am I being played? I don't know. Or is his son just, maybe Larys has an entirely different agenda from his father. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's a grown-ass man. He looks like he's like 30. So he may just have his own shit that he's doing.
It's true. And it's funny, too, because I remember when he popped up earlier in the season, and I was just like, who's that guy? You know? And he's the one that when they were having the fucking big tourney for the baby?
The hunt.
He hangs out with the women. And I should have known then that he was going to be a messy bitch.
You kind of called it. You said on the show, like, I feel like, you know, he's not hunting, but he's also making sure to plant himself where there's going to be a bunch of gossip. And I feel like maybe that's
shit, look at me. Mm-hmm. All right, this who-faced motherfucker. You guys, I really don't like him at all. And it is not even based on the character. I'm just being wildly prejudiced against who people.
Racist. So he starts off talking about how nature's a mystery because this plant is thriving here. And yet it's a dark day for the realm. Your father was a good man. And she's like, yeah, well, your dad's a good dude as well. And he says, sure, but the way your dad took off, it just doesn't really feel fair, does it?
It's an injustice. I do appreciate Allison several times being like, can you just fucking say what you came to say? And stop like all this like talking in riddles nonsense.
Yeah. He's like, well, I've learned to really watch and observe, blah, blah, blah.
One Maybe who's not asked to speak.
Right. I'm like, you sure have no problem with it, apparently, though. Like,
you know what's great about what he's doing, though, is when he says that bit about one who's very rarely asked to speak, often listens, is a really nice way to put himself and Allison like, oh, look, we're the same. You know, you get it, don't you? You get it, and now you see I get it. You know, they don't want to listen to people like us. Yeah, it's very slick.
Yeah, that's true. And he says something about how perhaps you're in need of an ally. And she says, I'm the queen. I have tons of allies. It's not a problem. And he's like, yeah, like the princess, but I don't know how much she's going to be able to help you, considering that she hasn't been feeling very well lately. She's like sort of, you know, under the weather. And Allison is like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, you know, the Grand Maester brought a tea for her last night. They've been giving her some attention at the order of the king. Yeah. And it was sort of this is the moment where Allison and look, I get that they need to do this, but Allison's assumption that Rhaenyra must have fucked because they brought her a tea, that is such a flawed assumption. Like, Allison knows that Viserys just believed that Rhaenyra had fucked somebody right away. Like, he said to her basically, like, you know, so of course he's gonna send a tea because he doesn't believe her. You try to convince him, and he's just gonna do what he thinks is prudent, whether or not she did. And it was weird that as soon as she hears that there's this tea, she just assumes that is confirmation, which it isn't. It's just him covering his ass.
So you think that she assumed that the tea was when he tells her about the tea, I was one, I have to say, I thought that, like, because literally all he says is, you know, the maester himself brought her a tea, so it must have been a very serious condition that she was in, right? Because the implication is that if the king told the maester to do this thing, it's got to be a big deal. But she jumps right to like it being some sort of contraception, right? whether it's, to stop getting her pregnant or terminating if she got pregnant or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next thing Allison does is like dig for more information. So I don't feel like she thought that this news about the tea was the confirmation, but it's what set her on the path of trying to get additional
I get what you
confirmation.
mean, but I still, if I were her, would just be like, oh, he really doesn't believe her and he's going to make her drink this stuff. Okay, if that makes you feel better. Like, she seemed to really believe Rhaenyra, and the moment she hears this, it's all in doubt. And that just felt like, he has to take precautions, and that he didn't believe Rhaenyra. You already had that scene. But again, they have to make her question it. So they just do this thing. Okay, fine. This guy is so, like, slippery. What happiness to have been wrong. Oh, shut up.
It is like trying to out Littlefinger a little bit, isn't it? He's also doing this thing. This actor is doing this thing where I understand that there's a situation going on with his foot. I forget what he told me, whether it was injured or it's a club foot he was born with. I'm not exactly sure.
I think it's a club foot, yeah.
Which is also interesting. You know what? Because if it's something he's born with versus an injury that he sustained, that would have a huge impact on how he grew up and how he was treated. I hadn't really thought about that in that term. But yeah, that's a very,
Yeah, when he goes and sits with the women at the hunt, he says, the gods did not make me for hunting.
Yeah, interesting. But yeah, the way he can't really sidle,
But I feel like he can sidle extra, actually.
Yeah, but like he's doing something that feels like it's a level up from sidling. I just don't know what to call it. But it's like
he's sidle idling.
I don't know why that's so funny to me. Oh, just because it was such nonsense. I really appreciated it.
Sometimes I just decide to go for it and it pays off. And I didn't expect it to hit that well, but I'm glad that I went for it and gave it a shot.
But yeah, his whole his demeanor, right? Like the way his body language is, and he's kind of like hunched over a little bit, so he's not standing quite as tall over her, It's just a very interesting choice. Yeah. I don't like this guy at all.
Same. So that's the end of that scene. We have the thing with Corlys. I should mention too that they like shut the doors in Rhaenyra and Laena. What is her name?
The girl is Laena.
Laena, and he's Lenore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lenore.
Oh my God! Every time you say that, then you do that, and it's still funny.
I have to.
I get it. I 100% get it.
But yeah, the two of them are like decisively shut out of the conversation.
Oh yeah. All the like guards just like, can we help you? And then I think one of them apologizes. It might be Criston, I guess, who's just like, yeah, I'm sorry.
There's an interesting thing here in the negotiation with Corlys where he's like, well, are you going to have it be that she takes his name? And I was like, that really is asking a lot. I was astonished that he had the guts to even put that on the table.
Yeah.
Because and Viserys goes for it a little bit. He should not even have considered this.
It's I want to just say it's not really important, but I love this set where they are, this place, this Driftmark?
I think so, yeah.
And then the House of Tides, or I don't know if that's what the castle's called or whatever, but I love this. It's really, really cool. And there's a lot of really interesting detail happening in the background. All the like the ship motifs and everything that's happening. It's very, very cool. But yeah, Corlys is out here negotiating.
Yeah.
From a position of power. And
Jack Donaghy would be very happy.
Listen,
with the
he
way
would,
that he
right?
has decided to handle all
Corliss
of
has
this.
read Jack Attack.
Do you remember him and Liz each talking quieter than the others?
Yeah.
Oh God, that show could really get it right sometimes. And as they're having this conversation, Rhaenyra and Lenore are out having a stroll on the beach. And basically she's like, hey, look, so I get it. You don't like pussy. And that's fine. I don't like pussy. Not everybody likes everything. So what do you say if we do what we need to in order to, you know, fulfill our obligations to the realm, but otherwise just go ahead and continue to eat what we like to eat separately? And he seems very pleased.
This is the deal of a lifetime. This is like the best that either of them, I think, could have hoped for. Mm-hmm. You know, we should mention the thing that Corliss, I guess, is negotiating. Is now you said that this is sort of a big ask, and I get that it's a big ask because, you know, the king is going to want like the name Targaryen to carry on, but the way Corliss frames it, which is just like, you're going to keep with our traditions, aren't you?
Right.
And it's like the kids need to have the name Valerian, is what Corliss is saying needs to happen. And Viserys ends up agreeing to that with the sort of stipulation that the child that ends up taking the throne, though, they're going to be a fucking Targaryen.
Yeah.
That's the name they're going to rule under. So I just need you to understand that's how that's going to work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I just feel like he really should not have capitulated at all. Just, he's already doing something that just, you summon them. You don't go to like,
yeah, right. That's the other thing too. I'm glad you mentioned it, right? Because especially when you see how poorly, how poor his health is and how poorly he managed that fucking ship ride over. Everything that's going on says he needs to tell them they need to come to fucking King's Landing. He, you know, their presence has been requested. And I don't understand why he doesn't do that. I know that he is in a position where he needs this match to happen, and he's trying to assuage Corliss's sort of wounded pride. I get that, you guys, but at the same time, I cannot believe that they just made this trip. I really can't.
Yeah. He really needs to have he needs to have asserted his dominance to start things off on the correct foot. And instead, I have to assume they knew why he was coming, what he was planning to propose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like that's sort of given. Yeah.
I'm wondering if he thought they wouldn't come if he summoned them. Which, if he thought that, that's a real bad sign.
Yeah.
Like,
my thinking on this is I have one thought and then I have a question. So I'll do my question first. If Viserys had summoned them to King's Landing for this proposal the way I think he should have, was there a chance that Corliss realistically would have said no? Because I suspect, even beneath all like the wounded pride and all that, I believe Corliss could not have said no to this offer of his son becoming like, you know, king consort, you know. But then the question becomes, what if Viserys summoned them and Corliss really said no? Because then now Viserys has to act on that. And what does he do? Like, he'd be pushed in a corner, you know?
that's kind of the problem, is that I assume Corlys would of course go for it.
Yeah.
But Viserys doesn't have that faith, which really shows where he is standing in his mind. And that is damning.
Yeah.
You know?
His whole approach to this whole thing is so, like, backwards.
Yeah. Yup.
Yeah. He doesn't seem to really feel as powerful as he should feel for whatever reason, you know? He doesn't seem very kingly. Even like in the worst sort of aspects of being a king. Like it's hard for us to imagine. It's hard for me to imagine. But when you think about what it means to be king, like you have absolute and total and complete power until someone challenges you on it, right?
Right.
So you could just be out here waving your dick around. Which is kind of what it is to be king. And he just doesn't do hardly any of that, you know?
He doesn't. Yeah. And I think it's like he feels that I think he wants to be remembered as like kind king, you know, good measured, like even-handed king. And I respect that desire.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't make a good king.
It's not. It's just he's doing that thing that people pleasers do, which is please nobody. You're just trying so hard to equivocate all over the place that you don't take a stand on anything. You don't get anything. He's a centrist. He's a fucking Democrat.
He's a moderate.
Oh, God.
I was just talking to Steve, you know, we're in the midst of like midterms all over here in the US. So there's just political ads running fucking nonstop. And me and Steve have this game now where we can tell, like, before they say anything real, whether they're running as a Democrat or a Republican. Because if you hear them say moderate, that is a dead giveaway that they are a Democrat.
Republican.
Republicans.
We both had totally different responses.
Republicans do not brag about being moderates.
That's true.
Right now, they are leaning into the extremism that is running rampant through this country. You know, it used to be, a moderate Republican, but yeah, no, they're not running on that shit. At least like they exist, I guess. People claim they exist, but they're not they're not campaigning on that shit.
Yeah, that's true.
Every commercial that has somebody talking about being a moderate, it's a Democrat trying to appeal to Republicans. It's a Democrat trying to distance themselves from the more progressive parts of the party.
I just can't imagine when they're going to figure out that doesn't work. Because they don't want to figure it out because they're really not much different than what we already have. Like they really are, you know. That makes sense.
You know, they're
really sense. That makes sense. My Columbo moment. That could be the name of my autobiography.
Your Columbo moment?
My Columbo moment. It won't make any sense, and people will be waiting for a long time for a mystery that won't happen. Anyway, okay. So we have then the discussion between Corlys and Rhaenys about basically our son is gay, and is he going to go for this? And Corlys is like, it's a phase. He has to know that fucking women is where it's at. And
This like, man is the bee's knees. I love them as a couple. They really are a
great couple.
I love them. I really, really like Rhaenys, and I'm hoping. I don't know because you know we're doing the big. I don't know if you know or not. I don't want to spoil you, but you probably already know because you read the book. But they're doing like the time jump. Next episode. Yeah. So I'm hoping that she's still around. I don't know if something happens to her in the interim or not, but I love how smart she is.
She's very smart, which is what makes it so fucking infuriating that she isn't ruling.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, I stand Corlys for being like, that I will never forgive that shit. And she's like, I let it go. And he's just like, well, fuck it. I did not.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that's great for you.
Right?
I love that for you.
But what we're doing over here is holding grudges.
So Yeah, they have their little moment, and then we go to Lenore and Joffrey.
Yeah.
Which, that's his name, so that's what we got to do. But I just really, the repeat names I'm not a fan of and never will be. But the two of them are talking about the situation, and that apparently Rhaenyra already has a paramour of her own, and they don't know who it is, but they figure she's got something in mind.
Yeah.
And they're both like, Lenore is like the more hesitant, while Joffrey is like, this is literally the best situation we could even have hoped for.
Exactly.
Like,
we have fucking hit the lottery. You are going to be king consort, so people can't say shit to you about what you do, as long as you keep it, relatively like this sort of discreet, but you know what I mean? But no one is really going to come and check you on it. And you have a wife that understands, and like, this is it. Like, why aren't you celebrating?
Yeah. So we go from there to her and her alleged paramour. She's on the ship, and she's talking to Ser Criston, and he says that he needed to see her, and she says, I confess I had a similar desire. And I was like, I don't think that's what he meant, girl. And finally he and this is what kills me, he says, you've confided in me, like, over our time together, and I feel like I have grown to know you, and you've said so many times how you loathe the position that you're in. What if you just didn't do that and ran away with me? And I'm like, man, he really doesn't get the part that she hates about the position she's in, which is not having power in a real way, which becoming a fleeing commoner would certainly not solve, sir.
Yeah. It is a completely staggering misunderstanding of the situation that they are in, that he displays in this moment. The fact that he thinks that she is going to walk away from the fucking throne to, I don't know, sell oranges and cinnamon or whatever the fuck he was talking about, is so misguided. And then he blurts out like the truest thing that he's ever fucking said, which is that this weird ass proposal to run away and live a life together is so rooted in his own mixed feelings and guilt about what he did about sleeping with her. He actually says, I thought marriage would fix it. You know, it's like when those, people who are like hardcore, religious people, and they, have sex before, and then they rush to get married because they had sex. Not even because somebody's pregnant, but because they had sex,
Yeah. Yep.
It is, and it's just, it's so sad. And I don't know. I mean, the guy playing him is like really attractive. But my level of attraction to him plummeted.
Just You're real sapiosexual, right?
Just on the fucking strength of this episode, I was like, oh, ew.
This is tragic. And I really feel like his feeling here reinforces the vibe that I got, which was that he did not want to be doing that. I just didn't feel like it. Like, even if he had lust towards her, that's not the same thing. And it is so clear how much he wishes he hadn't, and regrets everything about all the resulting, like,
do you think they
complications
continued
from it?
Do you think they had sex more than once? Like, do you think they've been having an ongoing thing, or do you think it was just that one night? I had a hard time
the
telling.
One night. I've heard some people assert it was more than once, but honestly, the energy that I was getting from the scene with, and it's hard to know with like the timing lining up from scene to scene.
I was going to say it's hard to tell just how much time has passed between when they slept together and, you know, it seems like they left for Driftmark relatively soon because Otto hasn't even left King's Landing yet, you know.
Yeah.
He's been told that his job is over, but we don't know like how long it took Otto to, I guess, get his shit together to leave. I will say the way that she looks at him on the ship makes me think, well, maybe they've been getting it in.
Mm-hmm.
But that could also just be the sort of afterglow of like, you know, wanting to do it again and like not being able to wait for a second opportunity, you know? So I don't know.
I just feel like there's no way that they could have carried on like on such a small ship under her father's nose or in Driftmark under the watch of other people. I could see wanting to, at least on her part.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel like they'd be able to pull that off. I mean, after she's already had her transgression, she's going to have to be being watched like a fucking hawk.
Yeah. If they were going to be together, it would have definitely had to have happened in King's Landing before they left, you know, on this little mission. The other thing, too, though, is if she's continuing to sleep with Criston, is she getting tea every night? You know, is it,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like there's, I don't know, like we don't get to see any of that. So I don't know. I think it was just the one time too.
I think so too. Yeah. And I think that people talking about how they were maybe having sex more than once are trying to create this romance that I don't think is actually there. I think she lusts for him and does not really care what happens to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he felt pressured and powerless, did it, deeply regretted it, and is trying to scrape together some semblance of dignity from what happened. And that's all there is to it. I don't think there's romance in this at all. I don't think that they're in love. I don't think he loves her.
No.
Like,
I think that because when they got together in that episode, it felt like the sort of culmination of a long time, right?
mm-hmm.
But not necessarily, especially now, you know, having, you know, a little bit more information, it feels like they had this relation that was playfully like sexual, you know, but understated, you know? Mm-hmm, so like there was like, maybe there was like some heat there and some tension there, but it's the kind that flourishes because there's no chance of anybody really acting on it. You know how that can be?
Mm-hmm.
Where the minute the chance to actually fuck, then all the heat's gone because you realize the whole thing that you were experiencing was just sort of like playfulness and, you know, all of that.
Agreed.
So I think that existed and that may have even carried him through to being able to fuck her. And then once she's there and she's pretty and she wants you and you're there and you're like, oh, I've low-key been wanting to do this for a minute. Mm-hmm. Then you kind of do it and you're just like, wait, you know. And he's clearly filled with regret. You are 100% right. He hates that he's done this. And I love the way you framed it. Like he is trying to cobble together something that makes this event make sense, you know, and make this huge thing be worth it, you know, everything that he lost, which is funny too because he hasn't really lost anything tangible yet, you know. No. He could have been her side piece for ages and kept his position and all that jazz, but he's out here with, I guess, a moral compass.
It's just a really conservative moral compass. Like the thing is that he keeps talking about having broken his vow, and he didn't break a vow. The vow is that he can't have children or a wife. But the vow does not say you can't fuck.
It doesn't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, shit.
Vow?
Well, then what the fuck is he going on about?
Because it's like the spirit of the law.
He's just another drama queen.
I'm gonna read this vow here, because I found it on a forum of Ice and Fire. Let's see. Oh, okay. So people are talking about how they don't actually get the text of it all in one place. The first duty of the King's Guard was to defend the king from harm or threat. Keep his secrets, counsel him when counsel was requested, keep silent when not, serve his pleasure, and defend his name and honor. And then, let's see, some kings thought it right and proper to dispatch King's Guard to serve and defend their wives and children, siblings, aunts, uncles, and cousins of greater and lesser degree, and occasionally even their lovers, mistresses, and bastards. And then Barristan, they have like cobbled together a bunch of different quotes here. Sir Gerald Hightower himself heard my vows toward the king to ward the king with all my strength, to give my blood for his. Then there's a quote later, he was your king, you swore to keep him safe and the children as well. So many vows, they make you swear and swear, defend the king, obey the king, keep his secrets, do his bidding, your life for his. And I've heard in the Sunset Kingdoms, men take solemn vows to keep chaste. Oh, so this says keep chaste. But then the next one says, I swore a vow not to wed or father children.
Well, he says the Sunset Kingdoms, they take a vow to keep chaste. So that's something completely different than Westeros, isn't it?
Well, he does, but it's followed up with somebody else saying, there are many such orders, the Maesters, the Septons, the King's Guard, and the Night's Watch.
Interesting.
But then I swore a vow not to wed or father children, which is not being chaste. It's not to wed or father children.
Maybe the implication is that, you know how that is, where it's like, well, when I said you can't get married, that includes not fucking, because you're not supposed to fuck until you get married. So it's, it's implied.
And that's the way I think he's interpreting it, which is why he is trying to marry her, so that he's breaking the less terrible of the oaths, I guess, which
also
is weird.
It's a different thing to say I broke my vow for a one night stand that I really didn't even want to be a part of, or I broke my vow because I was madly in love and we got married. So, low key worth it,
Yep. So yeah, I'm seeing a kind of back and forth on whether or not that vow is even chastity or not. But I think he's taking it as chastity. So yeah, at this point, she tells him, I am the crown. And yeah, I may chafe at what I have to do, but you have to know, I am not going to choose to trade this to just go into hiding.
Yeah.
And get on a ship and I didn't really want this. I'm making the best of it, though. And he will make a fine husband.
And she's like, and look, there's good news, because we have already come to an understanding about what our duties are, what our marriage will be. And look, there's room. We don't have to change what we're doing, right? Because she also... and this could be chalked up to youth, or maybe she just hasn't spent any real time interested in how he feels about anything at all, which is kind of a side effect of being so super privileged that you don't have to think about how other people think about anything or how they feel about anything. Yep. She really thinks that she is telling him some great news. We can just keep fucking on the low, isn't this fantastic? Because she doesn't seem to have any appreciation for what he is, air quotes, what he gave up to be with her. She just doesn't see it that way at all.
Yeah.
Either she doesn't understand how important his vows are to him or how importantly he takes them. She just maybe doesn't understand honor in that way. Like, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe she doesn't have a really good frame of reference since she's never had to really be like in his position where you vow to, you know, stand by these certain things. And if it means you don't do them, then, you know, you're not the person you thought you were. Whatever's going on here, she does not seem at all aware of how he is about to react. She seems completely shocked that he's reacting this way.
Yeah, what's interesting here, so to finish off like this moment, he says, so you want me to be your whore? And again, she's like, I just wanted us to keep going like we began with me pressuring you to do something that you're clearly not interested in. What's wrong with that? And he does specifically say here, I swore a vow of chastity. So I guess they're going to go with that. But again, I haven't found the actual text to the oath. And he said, I broke it and I sullied my white cloak, which was the only thing I have to my fucking name. And his acting in that moment, I was very impressed by.
Yeah.
The desperation is genuinely like heartbreaking. And what I'm going to bring up Dandelion Dynasty again. I'm sorry, everybody, but read it. But there was a chapter that I just covered yesterday, and there is something called the Grand Examination, basically sort of like maester tests. And they pick the best and brightest to serve at the palace. And there's an extensive series of tests that they go through to winnow down until they get like the top 100. And the woman who is in charge of the Grand Examination at this point used to be a commoner, but she's brilliant and she managed to rise up. And she thinks she's doing everybody a favor by deciding that they no longer are going to use these ancient logograms, which are considered very elevated. They are going to use these symbols that are meant for everyday use, like accounting and inventory, things like that. And they're, you know, something that more people are familiar with and identify with. So she thinks that she's evening this playing field for all of them, and expects that the commoners are going to be really happy to have been made for their like version of language to be made more important. And instead, the poor are the ones that are the most vocal about pushing back on this. And she's shocked and she's like not understanding. And she has to speak to somebody about it. And they're like, do you remember what logograms represented for you when you were still poor? And how they were a symbol of achieving something. They were a tradition and something so important and classic and just monumental. Like they were the symbols used to talk to the gods. And the poor have to work harder than anybody to get access to learning about them. So they're going to hold it even closer to their hearts than somebody who was raised with those being tossed into their regular education curriculum as just another thing to study. The poor are going to value it so highly because it was difficult to attain and was part of a world they did not grow up in. So they are going to feel like, I've managed to get this education and achievement, and now it's not even going to count. You're not even going to like, you know, respect what I poured into to get to the same place as my richer peers. And I kind of feel like that's what's going on here is like, he has become a fucking Kingsguard. He is the personal sworn sword to the only heir, the only like descendant before these other boys came along, and girl, I guess. And it's such a huge deal because he didn't come from a big house. She picked him, despite the fact that he had nothing. And she's just shitting all over that. And he thought that there was like something like real about his achievement. And now it's maybe looking like she just picked him because she thought he was hot.
Yeah.
And is reducing him to this. And it's nothing to her, you know? It's just degrading.
That's a very good way to look at this. The lack of understanding and respect that she has for this role as sworn protector and, you know, Kingsguard, because it's just like part of the staff for her, you know. Yep. It's when you get down to it, they're there to serve her in whatever capacity that she requires or wants at any given moment, without any real appreciation for what it took him to get there. And it's funny too when you think about it, because when she was choosing him, she had the whole bit about like wanting to pick somebody that had seen some action, right? Because she, you know, needed somebody that was about that life.
Right.
But all the other men that were up for the job that day were all these guys from these noble houses. And not that they didn't work hard to get there, but to your point, they probably didn't have to work nearly as hard as he did to even be in the running.
Definitely.
Yeah. So,
in fact, a lot of the Kingsguard are men who are not going to be in line to inherit anything. So they pick this because it's probably the best they're going to do since they're third and fourth sons down the line.
Yeah, if they're lucky enough to be talented enough, I guess, to make it there.
Yeah.
I mean, because then you have people like fucking Sam in the main story that ends up, you know, being sent to the Night's Watch because he wasn't going to be no Kingsguard.
Exactly.
You know, it wasn't even on the table for him.
So, yeah, I really felt for him in this scene. Like, and we're all very quick to make jokes about how he really thought that one night stand was good enough for her to like dip and leave the crown for. And it is funny to just phrase it that way, but it's not about her. It's not about expecting her to like care about him really. It's about hoping that he can pull honor out of this mess somehow and do something that maybe can be written about in a song in this romantic way, instead of him being the fucking gigolo that the queen messed around with that got her in trouble, you know, like, yeah. And we see the results of that being pushed a little bit too far later.
Yeah. When she's at the end of this conversation, she's starting to sort of parrot back, you know, the history and obligations of her house, you know, and the grand plan, you know, the destiny of what it is to be a Targaryen. And he just fucking walks away from her in the middle of her spiel.
Yep.
And that's how he is. The end of the scene. Yeah, which, he is honestly not interested.
That is the attitude to have in general, because I don't know why they keep hammering on with the fucking prince that was promised and the Song of Ice and Fire when we know how that went. Show what you should be doing is pretending that show and the finale didn't happen,
instead of constantly reminding us.
Yeah, you keep on like, really, there's so many moments where you could just have not done this and let us forget, and you just keep bringing it back and making these poor people look like assholes because they're so invested in this fucking like this prophecy that withers and dies in this like pathetic and spectacular way. But anyway, okay, so then we cut to Alicent, who is watching their ship come in, and she is wearing her green again in this moment. Yep. She's wearing the dress that she wore when she went to see the king the first time.
Yep, she's pulled back her old wardrobe, and that's how I thought of it. Like, I know she's got other shit. We've been seeing her dress as a queen, you know, each scene that she's been in, whether it's when she goes to see her father off or when she's talking to Larys in the garden. But now she's just got regular Lady Alicent Hightower dress on.
Mm-hmm.
And they arrive, and the first thing that happens is fucking Viserys collapses as he's trying to come out of the carriage.
Yeah.
And you have to just think about what is going through Alice's mind as she's watching, with the last words of her father being, this motherfucker is going to die. Mm-hmm. Probably sooner than later. He is not going to make it to be an old man. And the other thing that he said to her is, you are out here trusting that Rhaenyra will keep you and your children safe. Yeah. Right? So something like you're going to cleave to her. And that's really what it is. She has been at least, or she was, trusting in Rhaenyra enough that her and her children would always be taken care of. She never once considered them being like a threat to the crown. Mm-hmm. And then they come back, and this man can't even stand for a second when he gets out of the goddamn carriage.
It's real bad. Yeah, it's goes down like a fucking felled tree.
And when Viserys asks for her later when he's being tended to, and I think it's the hand. I think it's Strong. It's like, I believe she is otherwise engaged or some shit. Like, yeah, she's not coming. That girl that used to come and bathe you,
bruh.
She has left the building. You got a new wife now, and this one don't give a fuck about you.
This moment is all right. Well, we have to wait. We are gutting ahead of ourselves again. First, we have Alicent meeting with Ser Criston. Now, I want to know, did you notice the fucking tapestries?
Listen,
in this scene,
when they had that joke about seeing the new tapestries in the other episode, I didn't even pay any attention to it. It was like a funny moment, but whatever. But they really did come full circle on this shit.
They decided what they were going to do was be like, maybe he would have liked these tapestries. You ever think of that? You really dismiss those like it was nothing, but those tapestries actually are
big Daemon energy, right?
Yes. Those who did not pay attention, it is Orgy City.
Yeah, it's going down.
I mean, we're talking at least 4 people per tapestry at a time in contortions that I can't do anymore. I'm too old for that shit.
And this is like the baby's room or the nursery or whatever. Like, this is like her private quarters.
I think it's
her private quarters, right? But she's in there with the baby a lot. It's where she spends a lot of her time. And I just have a lot of questions, like, who decorated this room? Did she decorate the room?
Maybe Viserys was like, why don't you get her some erotic shit so that she'll be more in the mood, because she has really been a dead fish, let me tell you. We need to do something.
It really seems like, I don't know, maybe that's what's funny about it, is that I have a sort of an assumption of who Alicent is in a lot of ways that she hasn't actually given me a lot, but I think of her as being almost prudish, but not like in the prudish because of the times that they're in, right? Very conservative, very proper. Does not seem like the type of queen that would have orgies on the wall in her private quarters, Yeah. And that, like, if she were to visit someone's room and saw it, she might react kind of like, ugh, that's a bit much, don't you think? That's not appropriate for a woman of your state, something. Mm-hmm. But instead,
I am into the weirdness and unexpectedness of this, especially in light of how much it's the backdrop for this like incredibly awkward conversation. And I just imagine him trying desperately not to look too hard at what's on the walls and everything. But yeah, so he comes in,
this motherfucker,
and he takes a seat. And she's like, so I wanted to ask you, and he's like, about fucking the princess? Yeah.
Listen, he folded so fast.
So fast. He really assumes she knows already. He doesn't think he's confessing so much as just confirming information she already has.
She is doing this thing too, where it's like she's having such a hard time. Well, okay, my reading of it, unless she's like just really masterful, my reading is that she's so uncomfortable about what she's about to ask, right? It is so outside of what any respectable person would ask anyone, right? It's almost, it's insulting. It is rude. It is in bad taste. You know, it's all of those things. And so she's really struggling to get the words out. She's starting sentences and then leaving these long gaps. And it's just enough for him to get the idea of what's being asked. Yeah. Like a vague, roundabout idea. Okay, we're talking about whether or not the princess fucked somebody. But then before she can ask her question, which is about Rhaenyra and Daemon, he's just out here like, yeah, it was me. Everything is true. It was me. Oh, I was so disgusted, y'all. I was so disgusted.
And he stands up and says, I dishonored myself. I dishonored her. I dishonored the Kingsguard. I dishonored my parents. I dishonored my ancestors. I dishonored your dad. I dishonored the king. I dishonored you.
Like, it's just mean? Fucking... that cartoon character for some movie I have never seen, but
are you talking about the little dragon?
I think so.
Dishonor upon you, dishonor upon your cow. I didn't even think of that because I haven't seen that movie, but I was definitely channeling that, I guess. But yeah, and then basically is like, look, I get it. You're going to have to kill me. And I am not even really that mad because I really just want to be dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we could make it so that I'm not tortured first, that's all I ask. Just cut my head off and be done. I don't want the gelding. Like, if we can skip it.
I don't even have a right to ask for this, considering what I have done. But I'm going to go ahead and take a shot anyway and ask you, for mercy in that regard. And then she just dismisses him. Like, you can go now. But, so, I know that this is a huge betrayal as far as Alicent is concerned. I get it. It is a betrayal of their friendship. Rhaenyra has lied. I meant to rewatch the previous episode because I know Rhaenyra swears that Daemon never touched her, and that they never had sex. I feel like when she swears on her mother's name, she also swears that she's still a maiden, right? Does she actually explicitly swear that she's basically hasn't fucked anybody, or does she just swear that she didn't fuck Daemon? I can't remember. Do you remember?
I don't remember. And I think that I was taking it as her swearing that she didn't fuck Daemon because from what I remember, I was like, well, she never really technically lied. And then she does swear that she hasn't fucked at all. And I was like, oh no, she isn't doing the technical I'm not lying. She's just straight up lying.
Okay.
So I think she does swear that she, like, nothing of the kind happened with anybody.
Right. So when you think about the fact that her father has put this bug in her ear already, that her safety and the safety of her children and the success of her family hinges on the fact that she can trust Rhaenyra to always look out for them, finding out that she lied right to your fucking face and did it very easily, that changes everything, right? That changes everything. And that is, I think, more than, like what I said earlier about how her father is reminding her how her children would never be safe, was like the important first domino to sort of tip over.
Right.
And then you have this confirmation that, yeah, you've put all your stock in this one person, and that person cannot be trusted.
Yep. Especially considering it's going to come down to your kids' lives. And if she swears to you on her mother's life that she would never cut your children's heads off.
Yep.
What are you supposed to believe?
Yeah, exactly. Like you can never trust her with anything ever again. And it sounds like, and it's so wild that you have to keep coming back to the fact that we're literally just talking about a girl who banged a guy one night. You know?
Yep.
But which, you know, shouldn't be that big of a fucking deal, but it is. And it is just like, none of this would be a plot point, could be a plot point if these characters were men, you know, if we were talking about two princes. Yep. None of this show, none of with the story that they're telling us right now could be possible if it weren't, you know, about these two women. Yeah, it just is. Oof.
Indeed, ma'am. Indeed. So they have this moment. She sends him away. Then we have the Varys talking to Sir Harwin Strong, or wait, not Harwin. What's this guy's first name?
I have to wait for the scene to switch. I think I'm a little bit behind you. I can't remember where it goes. But
basically, Viserys is like, I sometimes feel that the fact I haven't experienced any adversity in my life.
Oh, Lionel,
thank you.
The hand, yeah, gotcha.
Mm-hmm. That because I didn't experience that kind of adversity, I didn't get forged to a sharp enough point, basically. Mm-hmm. I am, on the one hand, blessed for not having had to experience it, but maybe I wouldn't be who I am, and I don't like who I am. So that would probably be better. And he says, there's this one line, many that are tested only wish to have been spared it, is what Lionel says, which I was like, amen, sir. Mm-hmm. And then he says, another lord might assure me that I would rise like Aegon the Conqueror. And I was like, yeah, I think that you know all too well that is a lie. Like, there's no point in telling you. There are certain people who are vain enough that if you tell them that shit, they will buy it and believe it themselves. Mm-hmm. And you are so unsure of yourself that kind of flattery wouldn't even work on you. Mm-hmm. So then we go to some dragon escapades. And it's the whole crew, the Valerian family, coming to the shores for the wedding.
It's rolling up. It is pretty remarkable. I was trying to see who was flying on the dragons, but they don't really give us a close-up of that, right?
I think it's...
So, I know that Laenor has his dragon, Sea Smoke.
Right, and I think the other one is Rhaenys.
Oh, right. That's right. She has a dragon too. Because when she comes into the meeting at the island, when Viserys is there, she's still in like her fucking riding gear. Yeah. Coming in. Which is also really funny when you think about that scene, because she also was not there ready to greet the king properly.
That's true. That's true. So we have this big feast that's happening in the hall. Apparently they're supposed to feast for 7 days.
Yeah, they have a whole thing planned. It's 7 days. It's going to be a tourney. Mm-hmm. All the people, you know, everybody who's anybody is here. And it's Viserys and Rhaenyra at the head table receiving people. The first people to show up are this fucking Lannister dude shows up again. Fucking Jason. Mm-hmm. Jason Lannister. Like
Chad Lannister.
I was about to say Chad. God damn it.
Apologies to any Chads out there, but you must be aware of the name thing that's been happening on the interwebs. Chads, Beckys, Karens, nobody is safe. Nobody is safe.
Listen, everybody gets their time, you know. He makes this fucking ladies are always late, am I right? Like, I
swear to God.
What are you doing, sir?
And the queen being late is like a real slight that Sarah clearly knows, but
trying to pretend like it's all good.
Yeah.
And like, she should be at that table. Like, the fact that that seat is empty is again another display of like weakness and discord within his whole shit, right? Like out on display for the whole world to see, that empty chair. Never mind when we get to the way she actually shows up and what she's wearing, but just her absence. Like, these people should not have been seated in the hall until all three of them were at that fucking table. They should have fucking been made to wait. I'm sorry, it's rude, but you know what I mean? Like, the company can't come in until we're ready. We're all where we're supposed to be. So we are projecting the image of like strength and unity and everything. Like, this is just wild choices that are being made here.
Which I actually feel like would have shamed her into being more on time. You know, like, she is somebody that is very conscious of being sort of, what's the word I want here? Not scandalous, because that's too strong, but just not like adhering to the accepted decorum. And if they make it clear, oh, we're not starting unless you come with us and start, you know, like, I feel like that would be it. She would 100% capitulate and be like, all right, fine, I'm ready. Absolutely.
Because by not doing that, he is again giving up power and letting it be taken by whoever's willing to fucking take it in that minute that he's like opening his hand. And she takes this opportunity to make a very bold declaration, and he left the window open for this. Now, I'm not saying that not having this moment would have changed Alicent's, you know, position or anything, but she doesn't get to have this moment where it's again being disrespectful in front of God and your whole fucking family, you know. But we don't see it, but at some point somebody is like, all right, let the feast begin, seat the king and the princess, open the doors, let the visitors in before the queen is seated. Nah.
Indeed. I agree. So, and I love when he says the whole like, oh, they often say women would be late to battle, and Rhaenyra's micro expressions of like eye rolling and like eye flicks of just, is he fucking serious? Did he just,
oh my God.
Wow. Okay, sure. She is ready to slice this man's throat open. It is like every woman, you know, multiple times a day. And then the fucking, it's always a fucking pleasure. Your company is always just fucking delightful. Piece of fucking shit. Oh, God. It's so good. So, jumping ahead a little bit here, we have Lenore come in. And the sort of like presentation to everybody of this consort that's about to happen.
This fucking interest by the Valerians, of course I was here for it. I don't want to there's no need to spend a lot of time on it, but I happen to have it freeze frame right now because it's paused on that scene. And y'all know I was losing my mind, right? I'm sorry to be so basic, but I was. I was. Oh, shit.
So yeah, everybody has just gotten seated. And the two doors swing open, and it's a crowd, and they are in black and gold, and they are swaggering.
Yes.
There is no other word.
The drip
is out of control here. There's every sense that each person in this retinue is full aware of the effect they are having.
It does feel that way, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh man.
All I can think is like Joffrey, his lover, being mixed in there. And I'm just like, you just had better do what you can to soak this up, sir, because you did not earn any of that. You're just here.
Anytime Steve goes out with me and my family.
Oh, Steve. He'd probably just be like, it's fine.
I'm just here. Don't pay any attention to me. I'm just here.
So yeah, they come in, they do their little bows and whatnot. Lenore gets presented to everybody, and they sit down. And then, of course, late and dramatic as usual, comes Daemon. And I love Viserys looking at him like, oh my God. I cannot believe the gall you have to show up.
That fucking meme that you sent me, I saw it like a bunch of other places, but I think you sent it to me first. That fucking Simpsons meme with Mo carrying Barney out.
Yep.
Oh my God. It's true. How we have had, this is episode 5? No, episode 6? Episode 5?
Mm-hmm.
In 5 episodes, how many times have we already seen Daemon be told, get the fuck out of here? And then that motherfucker is just right back.
They have to go get him a chair and place setting because they weren't expecting him to sit at this table or be here or anything.
Oh my God. And it's like, I feel a little bit like, cause I don't know what else Viserys could have done in this moment. I guess he could have been like, okay, you can stay, but you got to sit down there. But these are all like family tables. So where was he going to, you know, like he just gets, Viserys is just put in this fucking, like, I don't like use this phrase really, but I'm struggling. He just keeps getting cucked by like everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody. Yep. And like, what can he do? He has to sort of be gracious about it and act like it's not a big deal. And yes, please bring up a chair for my ne'er-do-well brother who is putting me in this highly embarrassing situation right now. You know, like nobody in Viserys's life seems to have any regard for the positions that they put him in. And I can't blame them because he doesn't seem to have any regard for the situations he puts himself in.
There's some truth to that.
You know? So
yeah. He is so messy. It is wild. And so he comes, do you remember Chelsea and her boyfriend? I don't think they're married. Coming to my wedding, and I had it as a decline. Yes. And she showed up and we had to add place settings. Yes. I felt so bad. I didn't think she was coming. And then she shows up and she had a mask on. And I was like, I can't recognize you with your mask on. Who are you? And she takes her mask down and I was like, Chelsea? And it was. But there is something very embarrassing about being caught flat-footed that way. And especially considering the queen is late. Like the amount of discord being shown here, it's just off the map at this point.
Exactly, right? Like it's so funny because like the little bit that I know about the story, this whole story is that you know, we are watching the sort of beginning of the decline of the house, you know, House Targaryen, right? And at first when I was watching the show, I kept thinking, when are we going to get to the big thing that starts to decline, right? When are we going to get to the big thing? But the decline has been starting since the fucking first episode of this series. It's like this slow creep.
There's an American. I keep wondering, when's it gonna?
Listen, not you bringing reality to a fucking Song of Ice and Fire. Like, are you sipping tea?
Sure am.
But yeah, like everything is like this house is fraying so badly around the edges. Like that expression, like the slip is showing, you know? It is like, that could be the tagline for this whole fucking thing, is like your slip is showing. All of these little cracks, you know, and that they're so public. Yeah, it's I will say that the fact that this is 172 years before the birth of Daenerys Targaryen, I can't believe they lasted another 170 years after all the shit that I've watched in the first 5 episodes. To me,
harsh.
Like this shit should have been like 25 years later. There was no more Targaryens left.
Damn. All right. So speeches, talking about their fierce ally, House Valerian. Daemon's getting tucked in and seated and given a glass of wine. And then, of course, another dramatic interruption.
It's wild. People are just getting away with this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. So the doors open.
Again, just leave the doors open, guys.
Right?
You don't need to keep doing this. Like
there's an empty chair.
Now. What are you doing?
She's coming. Her chair is empty. Why would you listen?
I like to think that she asked them to close the doors.
Oh my God, how funny would that be? Holy shit. She passed somebody a note like, look, in 20 minutes, I need to make a very dramatic entrance. Could you do me a solid?
Yeah. This is reminding me again of my wedding because I had the barn doors that were opened for me to walk down the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started to come around the corner, those doors were not closed for me to stand behind and wait for my moment. And the planner had to come sprinting across and close them. And then I was able to come up the path. So yeah, maybe she just wanted the entrance that I also wanted. And I'm not mad at her for that. So she's wearing bright green.
Yeah,
this is some Kelly green with a sort of grass green lining, like a spring green. This is the greeniest green.
Yeah.
Even the little lacings across the front are very pale green.
Yeah, there is nothing else happening in that dress but green, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful gown. Rhaenyra's gown is really nice too, actually. I have been a little disappointed with the costuming. I think I mentioned this before, because it felt like I wasn't getting as much, but in the way of fashion, we're seeing a lot of outfits being repeated.
That's right. I forgot you did say that.
Yeah, but we got a couple of good ones in this episode because we have Rhaenyra in that amazing getup that she's wearing when they go to Driftmark, that beautiful big heavy coat, that red and black coat.
Yeah,
and then her
coat.
And then her dress here, and then Allison's dress in this entrance is my. Can you believe I'm buffering?
What?
It's buffering for me now.
Oh, you got infected. I'm sorry.
You jinxed me.
Also Miss Aria's clothes. Every time she's wearing these stunning.
Yeah.
And it's funny because she is supposed to, I think Austin Neo posted about this, that she is supposed to have had the white hair, and because she doesn't, they just put her in white clothing. Yeah, to make because
otherwise that nickname is making zero sense, right?
Exactly. It barely makes sense because she just wears white, but I guess sure.
Yeah, I don't think we're supposed to think that hard about it, like most things in this show. It's also, think about it, but look away. Think about it, but look away.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Austin posited a really interesting theory about the thing with Daemon, pulling away from Rhaenyra, that he would have gone for it if they were still going to do it from behind, because he sort of turns her around. But when she spins and starts kissing him is when Daemon sort of seems to pull back, like she's making it too personal and real, and he can't separate.
That's right.
And I thought that sounded believable. I felt like that works. But anyway, my issue with this scene, though, is that everybody completely, the that starts just because the doors open and the queen arrives felt so artificial when they have to explain after that begins why everybody's freaking out. They should have established the green thing before this scene. And then the doors opening and her wearing this, the audience would have the same reaction as everybody in the room.
Yeah.
But instead, the doors open, everybody's hushed and begins talking. Viserys has this look on his face of just are you kidding me? And me and Owen are sitting there going, why? What is the deal? And then eventually the Strong brothers are talking amongst each other about lighting the beacons for war and that it's green, which I'm like, I mean, of course it is. That's their color. Can't you just say? It just felt really poorly slapped together. The whole moment for me. It felt like there was supposed to be a huge bit of drama here that didn't hit unless you got that dialogue which you could have fit in anywhere else, you know, just had anybody comment on the fact that she was wearing green when they got home and just indicate how interesting that is. But they're trying to sort of pretend that this is the first green she's wearing when it's not. And also that the audience is going to have the same reaction, which we won't until it's explained, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, this just did not work for me. I wish it had, because this is supposed to be a much in the book. The celebrations do go on for several days. You know, obviously this is like day one and it gets completely fucked. But they wear each their house colors to a tourney, and it's not like the wedding tourney, actually. I think that's a separate tourney. And Rhaenyra shows up in, as it's said in the book, extremely dramatic black and red clothing, whereas Alicent is wearing green. And it's noticed by everybody how each of them in that, like at that tourney that was very public, after they had some disagreements that were like public knowledge,
right?
Everybody sort of treated that as each of them really deciding, all right, I guess we're not on the same side anymore. But here they're having Alicent only do it, where Rhaenyra doesn't know this is happening,
right?
And nobody else is aware, as far as I know, that the two of them had any falling out at all. So this is totally out of context.
Yeah,
for everybody who's here.
That's what I was going to bring up too, is that no one else it's two things happening at once. There is a reaction in the crowd when Alicent shows up that this is a big deal, right? Just because she's wearing the color of her house, of her family's house, instead of, like, you know, the house that she's married into. But no one else, like, of the people that she's making a statement about, don't seem to realize that she's making a statement about them. But her house, like, they're the first ones that stand up too when she enters the room. The table with the high towers are all the ones that first stand up, and then you realize, oh, they're all wearing green too, like, just as somebody watching in the audience, right? But I don't know if, like, Rhaenyra has no idea that Criston has confessed anything, so she has no idea that Alicent knows that she lied to her face, so she has no idea that Alicent could be feeling anything other than how they left their friendship last time they spoke, you know? I wish that I had heard a little bit on the old interwebs, you know, about green and black, but I didn't have a full understanding of exactly, like, what people were talking about. So when she shows up in the green dress, my mind was like, okay, we're talking about sides. I get it now. But I don't know. It was a dramatic moment, but I feel like, I think I agree with you. It didn't fully work the way I think it could have. The only thing that I would ask or question is, when, like you mentioned, a way that they could have indicated the significance of her choice earlier, so it doesn't have to be explained in the moment. And I'm wondering when and how they could have done that. You mentioned that they could have said something when they come back to King's Landing and we see her looking out the window wearing her old dress. But who could she have interacted with that would have given us?
I'll tell you who.
You know,
we had that whole moment of her sitting, bouncing the baby in her lap, while a nurse waits in the wings when she's waiting for Ser Criston, and she gets up and hands the baby off and backs away and lets Ser Criston in, and there's just a lot of, like, busy work. Have her having just gotten dressed, have her seeing the ship coming in and then bringing in a gown for her to put on that's red, and her saying, no, I want green, and then being like, are you sure right now? And then her being like, yeah, no, bring me my old dress. And you would just understand that was, like, a particular choice she's making for a particular reason.
Right.
And it would just establish the whole, like, I want my house colors. I want just anything to there are big spaces where I feel like you could have replaced the scene entirely with something else and it would have been totally fine. I think they want to keep hammering at her being left with the baby. And I guess like, we just don't need that anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So if you just establish that to begin with, and the hesitation of her like handmaid or whoever it is that's helping her, which is something that I find kind of weird about the show, is that, and I know that they're emphasizing her isolation, but there is a way to do that with people in the room. Alicent would have people who look after her that would be around all the time.
She should also have a bunch of like ladies in waiting,
exactly,
and wives of noblemen always like tease. Like when you think about the first series and how often Sansa or Marjorie or the Queen of Thorns or any of them were always surrounded by these other, even when they didn't fucking want to be and they didn't have any respect for them, you know, they were always surrounded by.
No, my caffeine alarm foiled again. You know what we're gonna do?
We should take a break.
We should take a break. And we're back. You'll all be relieved to know that I got my caffeine today. Sorry, but you were talking about them being surrounded by other women. Yeah,
exactly. You know, so we know that there's a whole, like, you know, the ladies at court, you know, there's a bunch of them. They don't have shit else to do all day while their husbands are at small council meetings or whatever the fuck they're doing, you know? So she is so isolated. I mean, they're at the fucking Capitol. Why are there no women that she can spend time with?
And that would be, I think, a really easy way to actually emphasize her isolation is pointing out how often every interaction is about them trying to get something, trying to like weasel out a secret, or trying to suggest somebody be put in a position that will benefit their family, or just all of it being a constant like verbal war. There's just there are ways to do that. And I don't know if they just felt they don't have the time, which certainly is possible, but I still contend you could have shortened up a lot of other scenes and changed other scenes and gotten this result, I still think. Right. And it would have felt more realistic to me, because how often she is just totally by herself just doesn't ring true for me as a fucking queen. Yeah. And you could have all of those women sort of being like, this is about to be a big deal that you're, you know, we could go to her room and watch her delaying coming downstairs and have that delay be the fact that she doesn't know whether she should wear what she had planned or what. Right. You know, like any of that. Show us the red and black dress that she planned on and let us think that's what she's going to wear. And then have her walk through the doors in this green. So we know at the last minute she dropped the Targaryen thing. Yeah. And then we get the impact of it, you know? Yeah. Anyway, whatever. It's just a shame because they, like I said, they really seemed to play this moment like it was a big deal. And I just feel like they failed to pull that off. Yeah. So,
but
then we have dancing. Oh my God, his expression.
Where was I? And his speech is all fucked up. But yeah, and then we have dancing. Then we have that fucking Royce guy coming up to confront Daemon. You are
this dude. I cannot look. Daemon is such a fuck boy.
It is.
Oh my God, he doesn't give a shit.
That man is like, you know, she died and we think it's very suspicious. And Daemon says, "Oh, are you confessing to something?" Jesus Christ. Oh my God. The guy is like, wait, no, I am accusing, sir.
Yeah, we know, babe.
Oh my God.
So he basically ends this, Daemon does, with, so, what's up with Runestone? I know I get that, right? Because I married her and she's dead.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that's in the works.
Yeah. I'll be over there, you know, to follow up on that paperwork. and maybe I'll see you there. And he just sucks all the air out of this guy's sails. This guy has like barged up to which is also like, who are you to be barging anywhere fucking where? You're barging up to the king's table and nobody like put a sword up. Like, can we help you? Shoddy.
Such a weird word.
It is, right?
He's barging up.
But he does. And
he does.
There's like nobody. Like, how are you getting this close to the royal family is my question. Who are you? Exactly. But be that as it may, that's what happens. He gets right up there. He's all puffed up, and Daemon pops him like a balloon, and all the air just right out. And he just
metaphorically speaking,
right, limply just like walks back to his table.
Oh man,
it's oof. It's hard to watch.
This is the thing. You can say all the things you feel like saying, but do you have proof? Do you have absolutely anything other than your deepest suspicions? That's what I thought. That's what the fuck I thought.
Yeah. So then we have Daemon making eyes at Laena, and I don't know how I feel about this. She is also making eyes, right? Like, yeah. She is looking at him like he is, you know, remember like the cartoons when you're starving and you look at somebody and they turn into like a giant chicken leg or whatever. She is looking at him.
That is not what I expected you to say. I thought it was going to be like auga or something, but a chicken leg is so much more base. I don't know.
But yeah,
that's pretty good.
She is looking at him like he is just a walking opportunity, you know, like she just sees like, oh, this is what I need to be thinking about doing for myself and my life and the kind of life I want.
She is so beautiful.
Oh my God, it's fucking disgusting.
I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah, it really is it's not right. It's not okay.
It's not fair, man. Ugh. So yeah, the two of them have their moment. She's like very aware of the fact that he's over here prowling, stalking her.
Yeah.
He says that she's nearly as pretty as her brother, which is a pretty good line.
She had a good line, something about so she compliments him in some way, and he's basically like, oh, you wouldn't say that if you knew me better. And she's like, well, maybe we can fix that. It's like, oh shit.
So the two of them are over here doing their little thing. And then we have Lenore and Joffrey. And Joffrey is like, I figured out who it is that the queen is fucking.
Yeah. I mean, it really wasn't that hard, as he says. Like, just fucking look at him. Like, look at his face. Like, yeah, if anybody anybody could have figured it out, quite frankly, if they just had the interest in figuring it out.
Now, did you agree with that? Because I just don't. But it feels like a little bit of a stretch to me that we're meant to believe he has figured this out with this huge crowd of people around,
right?
That he zeroes in on this. I mean, maybe he's just like, well, he's closest to her.
Yeah, I think that I think this is the only reason why I buy this. I think that it's reasonable that Joffrey would be able to figure it out because he is looking for someone. He knows that he should be looking for someone that's in a very similar situation that he's in, right? So he's thinking things like, it's got to be somebody with proximity, right? In order to pull this off the way me and Laenor have been able to pull it off, it's got to be somebody who's close all the time that doesn't bring up suspicion. So that's going to immediately narrow it down. Right? It just like cut down like 9 out of 10 people in the fucking room. So it doesn't even matter how crowded it is. And once he figures that out, like you turn and you look at Criston and it's all over his fucking face. You know what I mean? So I really don't think it's that difficult to figure out. If you know, like I said, if you know what it is you're looking for. And since Joffrey is living the same thing, he's like uniquely aware of what to look for.
All right. I suppose. I'll allow it. So he decides that what he's going to do is swan up to Criston in the midst of their fucking wedding feast.
This is not
pre-wedding feast. And be like, hey, so I get it. That there's a whole thing going on, and it would be cool if you would just keep your mouth shut. I, who have my own thing with the prince, will keep my mouth shut, and we'll all just be very happy.
I haven't called bullshit really in the series, but I think this is bullshit. I cannot imagine a scenario where somebody in Joffrey's position does this night. This, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless we're just supposed to believe that he's incredibly careless and not very smart, you know, which they haven't really given me any reason to think those things about this character. I don't really even know him.
Mm-hmm.
It does not make sense to me that he goes all in on this night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like that is not, it's why?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It feels like this dude just got finished saying how this is a better situation than we could have hoped for, and then he just decides to fucking poke at it.
Yeah.
Immediately.
I don't. They're not even fucking married
that
yet.
Sort of situation, you fucking are worried about the precarious balance of it.
Yes, you know how careful you have to be, and this is reckless, and it makes no sense to me character wise. Like, why would this character who has been, you know, careful and discreet? I mean, it's clear that, like, at least Laena's parents know. I don't know if we're supposed to believe like the whole, like, little, what do you call it? Not a kingdom, but wherever it is they live, you know, I don't know if we're supposed to believe that everybody knows about Laena, or if it's just that his parents are especially, you know, kind of clued in.
Right.
But my assumption is they both, Laena and Joffrey, have to be discreet and they have to be careful, you know? And this seems just wildly reckless for no reason.
Yeah.
You know, they have no idea who Criston is as a person yet. They haven't felt him out at all. And this guy just walks over, supposedly so self-assured because he thinks this shared secret aligns them, you know? Yeah. But I guess we needed it because we needed to get to the next part of the story, right? So here we are.
This is the thing, because, like, again, in the book, jumping ahead a little bit. Well, you know, I won't, but I'm just going to say that the whole thing is supposed to be him just being like, make sure to keep your mouth shut. And I'm like, do you think the guy who's fucking the future queen doesn't know to keep his mouth shut?
Well,
dude?
he fucking
like,
doesn't, though.
What are you? I mean,
we know that, but
like,
he doesn't.
If you're thinking logically, if you're thinking about him as a paramour, which we know he actually isn't, but that's what Joffrey thinks. Of course, he would be shutting the fuck up.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just, yeah. Anyway.
And also, last little note about that is that say Criston was a different type of person, right? Say he was a paramour. This guy who I don't know is talking about my business that he shouldn't know about, and now he's telling me his business that I shouldn't know about. This is not anybody I want to be dealing with at all. That's just like a huge red flag, you know?
Yeah,
so it just,
So, yeah, this is followed up, this little, like, back and forth with Daemon cutting in on Sir Harwin to dance with Rhaenyra. And I love Viserys just trying to eat his fucking chicken.
Oh my God, this man, his hands are a mess.
His fingerless hands. And Daemon, in the middle of this dance, stopping her and saying, "Is this what you want?" And I'm just like, dude, are you really thinking that this is like something that can be stopped at this point? Like, and he's just like, this is not you.
Yeah.
He's a good man and a fine knight, and he will bore you senseless. And she retorts with, oh, somebody told me that it's just a political arrangement and it doesn't really matter. And he's like, well, I mean, I said that, but then I got out of mine very recently. And she's like, oh, well, if that's true, then just why don't you sweep me away?
I love
Why
this.
don't you carry me off on your dragon to Dragonstone?
This
Yeah.
is the second time she has called his bluff. Like,
Mhm.
okay, well, this is what you've been wanting. Fucking, I know you're armed right now. Why don't you fight my father's Kingsguard? Take me away. You know,
Mhm.
take me to Dragonstone and make me your wife, since you have so much fucking to say about everything all the fucking time. It's a very strong moment for her. And they did this thing with the camera angle so that as the viewers, we can see that, you know, they are just talking closely, right?
Mhm.
But the angle from Viserys, he can't get a clean shot. So it really does look like they're making out at one point, right?
Yeah.
It looks like
Yeah.
they're kissing right there on the floor.
The expression on his face, like, you are my political headache. Yeah. So all of a sudden, in the midst of all this, a hue and cry goes up. And I'm thinking it's due to these two somehow, you know? And no, it is not. Everybody begins backing away, and all of these like armed guards come down, and it turns out that Ser Criston has just barged into the middle of this fucking party.
Yep.
To beat Joffrey to death.
Beat him to death in the middle of the king's throne room, in the middle of the princess's engagement party, in front of, and he didn't just kill some random person. I mean, Joffrey is a knight in his own right, of a very powerful house, and he beats him to a bloody pulp and punches fucking Laenor, by the way.
Yeah.
Punches him right in the face.
Punches him and then just leaves.
Just walks the fuck
Nobody
away.
This is where I call bullshit.
Where?
What are you fucking playing at? You want me to believe in the most, like, in a room that's not only going to have all of the security from the king and the queen, all of these people are also here with their own guards and their own people.
Yep.
You want me to believe that this dude punches the alleged future king in the face and then just got to saunter off to the Kingswood with nobody following up on it?
Exactly. That is just complete nonsense. I don't know what the fuck we're supposed to think about any of this. I do want to mention, though, I don't want to miss that moment where fucking Harwin Strong, like, his dad gives him the little nod, because Rhaenyra is caught up in the melee as well. She gets like knocked to the ground and people are like stampeding. He just fucking moves through that crowd like it was butter.
Yeah.
Picks her up, throws her over his shoulder. She says, "Put me down." He doesn't give a fuck.
Nope.
And I may have come a little bit. I'm sorry. It was,
and it's the interpose, like him carrying her off with Criston and his like the blood flying as he punches this poor kid into his grave.
He just destroys this kid. It is
nobody
so
tries to pull him off. Like, what? Why not?
No, I think he gets pulled. Laena actually dives in. You know,
Laena shoves him off. And then he shoves Laena back again and then goes back in.
Yeah.
But, like,
but everybody else
so many people.
And, like, I know that these are, like, highborn people, you know, so maybe they're not going to, like, get into a fight with a Kingsguard. But to your earlier point, they all came, I'm assuming, with their own security and their own sworn protectors and, you know, whatever. I just don't. I don't know. I mean, like, if this scene had happened and then he is Criston is tackled, you know, and restrained, and then whatever, I'd have been like, all right, well, he popped off and nobody saw it coming, but what can you do? But when I saw him later and he's just in the fucking little garden, I was like, what?
Yeah.
But how? How exactly?
And, you know, when he's in the Godswood, Alicent comes up to him. And he's clearly, like, going to fall on his own sword at this point.
He's like...
And she speaks to him. So it's, like, clearly the setup is meant to be she's going to somehow use him for her own ends.
That's what it feels like. And that was my first reaction when I was watching this. And I posted about it. And I was like, oh, I guess we're supposed to believe that he's going to be an ally to her in some capacity. But how is he not put to death immediately?
Mm-hmm.
How does he have an ally? I don't know if the show's going to make him an ally or what she's going to do with him, but I don't know. Like, even if Alicent was like, I pardoned you as the queen, I don't see how the fuck that flies and how she doesn't immediately get overruled. Because as a Valerian, I need somebody to answer for what the fuck just happened to one of my knights and sworn, whatever. I'm looking to the crown to make it right. And I don't see how she gets to pardon him and Viserys doesn't immediately be like, oh no, veto that.
So here's where I bring up the book. Because I mentioned that there is a tourney that they do the whole thing. This kid Joffrey does get killed in the tourney by accident.
Oh.
Ser Criston fights him. He goes down. He's on his deathbed for a bit with injuries that were unintentionally severe. And he dies that way. So Austin Arminio had already told you a little bit about like the different accounts of what had happened with Ser Criston.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mentioned about how one of them was that Daemon was like teaching Rhaenyra how to have sex, but didn't actually fuck her. So she still had her maidenhead.
Mm-hmm.
And he was teaching her because she wanted allegedly to seduce Ser Criston. And he teaches her and she attempts it and Ser Criston rejects her and doesn't want anything to do with her. And that's one version. Again, there's like a bunch of versions. But if it happens in a tourney and Alicent wants to make use of this dude for reasons, and he rejected a queen who made advances because he isn't interested and is kind of appalled, that makes sense because he didn't commit a fucking crime in front of 200 witnesses. But they changed it here to this absurd situation in which certain dominoes had to fall in just such a bullshit way that if she does decide to have him be an ally and he manages to like pull out of this without being killed, it's gonna feel ridiculous. It's gonna be like, it's just, like, so there are things in which I feel like changing the narrative, I get it for expediency. I don't necessarily agree with the choices, but like, I guess this is one where I truly am like, why would you do it this way?
Yeah.
You made Joffrey do something so stupid. Then you made Criston do something so stupid. And I get that it's supposed to be like all the drama and messiness, but it's like, there's no logic following it up. Nobody's behaving in a normal, rational way. Even the bystanders, if you're going to make the excuse that the people involved have their emotions running high because they have so much on the line, fine. But you've got a crowd of hundreds of people who are not invested and they're just not behaving like people either,
Yeah. Like this, when he leaves, everybody like backs away and parts to like let him
and just
leave.
lets him leave.
It's so weird.
Like
we see that a bunch of knights storm in when the brouhaha starts, but throughout the entire fight sequence, you never see any of those. You
never see them.
They
what
disappear.
The fuck is that?
They disappeared.
Thank you.
They ran. You don't even like if they had run in and surrounded the king's table because that was their primary objective. I would have understood, but you don't even see that.
No,
you see them rushing in and then they literally disappear from the entire scene.
And then when he starts to get up and walk away, all of a sudden you see some guards who are like, all right, move along, nothing to see here, kind of shuffling everybody away as if their only job is crowd control and not stopping a murder happening in front of them. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's
so ridiculous. I know I said that this show's winning me over and I mean it, but like, come on. So then we have poor fucking Lenore like dragging himself across the floor to his lover's corpse in this like terrible scene.
Yeah. It's a weird choice, especially finding that in the source material it goes a little bit differently. I'm very interested to see if the show. I'm interested to see why the show made this decision. Like, what did they need to happen so desperately that this is where they went with this, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then I also, Criston goes to the garden. I just want to mention that he's literally dragging his white coat like through the mud.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he's doing this while we're intercutting with scenes of the marriage ceremony, because Viserys was basically like, all right, I guess we're gonna scrap this week.
Yeah, no festival.
Perform the ceremony in front of the pool of blood, without it being cleaned up or anything. It's just too much.
They are in the same room, right? Yep. But all the tables have been cleaned. All the food looks like it's been, well, not all the food, but a lot of the food and shit has been removed, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All the people have been let out, but nobody could like get a squeegee, a little mop action, a towel, nothing. Which just is, I get it. I get it, show. I get it. But also, can we just not? Lenore's face is still bloody.
Yep. He's like mopping at his bleeding nose with a handkerchief in the middle of the ceremony.
And I just... Like, the wedding had to be tonight because what exactly?
Of reasons.
What? Like, what? I get, the festival nature being, a bit more subdued because of the murder.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But why exactly are we getting married right now? I don't get it. Am I supposed to understand that? What is happening? No, I'm asking seriously.
There is no answer because it's silly.
Okay.
It's silly. There's no reason for it to take place this way. There is no reason for him to, like, look, if he decided to speed it all up after this tragic event and have them get married the following day even.
Exactly.
Fine. Doing it right here, right now is not, it does not make any sense.
I don't,
like, I was not missing anything. It's just silly.
I was like, are they afraid that Lenore won't last the night? Are they afraid that in his grief he'll take his own life? I was like desperately trying to come up with something, and I was getting a bunch of nothing.
I mean, maybe it was if they're given enough time to back out after all of this, they will. But again, if you want to keep them from backing out, you know what you do? You hold the man responsible for beating a man to death
right away.
Fucking room.
Right away.
And you don't just let him wander around the castle into this Godswood by himself with nobody stopping him. Like, it's just nothing about this makes any sense.
For a second, I was thinking, especially when I did the rewatch this morning, I was thinking, all right, well, maybe Joffrey being murdered isn't a huge, that the Valerians won't make a big deal about it because Corlys and Rhaenys know that their son was in a relationship with him, and they, especially Corlys, were kind of hoping that would be a thing of the past.
Mm-hmm.
But even if they personally had feelings that way, it makes zero sense to let their house be treated this way in such a public manner and not demand, justice, especially because Corlys is all about like getting justice for his family and his family's name. So this doesn't track that he would, just be like, oh, y'all let him walk out. That's cool. It just doesn't make any sense.
And so they're doing this ceremony, and one soul now and forever. And we have Alicent interrupting Ser Criston, and then we have, of course, Viserys toppling to the floor.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And
soon as they are announced like as being married, he fucking drops.
Yep.
Like he was just holding on.
Exactly. He was just like waiting around like, all right, well, as long as I make sure that this is done, I can finally die and it'll be okay.
Yeah. I'm very curious. Like he just hits the ground so many different times. I have no idea how serious this particular time is. Like, I don't know if he's dead, or what, So I guess I'll find out in the next episode what exactly happened to Viserys.
And I need to mention again that when he drops to the floor, the camera like pans over the entire throne room or whatever the name of this room is. And there had been all of these like broken tankards and stuff. And those are all gone. The only thing, let's see, I'm trying to find the spot because it's like, okay, they aren't gone. I lied. They're pushed to the sides. And then we have like the close up on the pool of blood and the little mouse. That's these rats are it, I guess.
Yeah, these rats or these mice have been all through this castle, all through fucking the Red Keep throughout this season. In a way that is becoming more and more pronounced, where I'm like, okay, the show is definitely trying to say something with them.
There's a rat.
Right? I just I don't know how literal to take it. Is it just because, rats bring, we think of rats as bringing like disease and sort of, we think of rats as bringing corruption, and like feasting on sort of like dead things, like they might as well just have a bunch of vultures sitting on top of the fucking wall around the Red Keep. Like if we're going to be doing that,
Yep. Yeah. So he's collapsed on the ground. Everybody gathered around him. Big pool of blood and credits. Yeah. I just still cannot get over the fact that this pool of blood is still sitting here. And the pieces of brain matter and skull, I think. It's just so much.
It's definitely a choice that someone made.
I guess. But I enjoyed the goofiness of the episode. The thing that gets me about stuff like this is when, and I've said this on other stuff I've covered, but the main contender whenever I talk about this is always Doctor Who. Don't take yourself that seriously and then do goofy shit like this. And this show clearly takes itself very seriously. Song of Ice and Fire in the TV world takes itself very seriously. It's considered like drama. And then they just have to really, okay, sure. But what's done is done. So time jump, do you have any predictions?
Well, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm very curious to find out if Viserys is still alive. When we start, I think it's 10 years in the future. I'm curious if Rhaenyra and Laena have had children by this point. I'm assuming that they probably had to have kids right away. I want to know what's going on with Criston. Like, is he, did he make it through 10 years, or did Alicent, help him escape to Essos like he wanted to go and have some cinnamon and oranges? Like maybe that was the reward. And I don't know. But
oh God.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of predictions, but I'm really curious to see where we land, how badly has the relationship, because the whole reveal of Alicent showing up in this green dress is supposed to mark like her defiance, right? And her allegiance is swaying back to her family house. But was it really that sudden, or like what did the next couple of days look like? And if we're jumping 10 years, what does that look like? Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it though.
I'm indulging myself a little bit and letting it play out because they do the preview for the next episode, which I normally always like slam the stop button and don't let myself see. And it looks like we're going to have some real interesting stuff going on, man.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Huh. We'll have plenty to talk about.
Huh. Well, all right.
I'm sorry. I just keep thinking about that meme and I think this was Austin that posted it again. And it's Daemon with his wife screaming, "I knew you couldn't finish it, Craven." And they Photoshopped George R. R. Martin's face over
right.
Daemon's.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's pretty good, actually. But all right, I feel like there should be something else that we wrap with here. And the main thing that I can think of is maybe saying hi to some new patrons. Should we do that?
Sure.
I want to remind folks that at the $10 tier on Patreon now, you get access to live records of me and Rashawn talking about Ted Lasso, and me and Miles talking about the Sookie Stackhouse series. And they have been it's just really interesting, the difference in energy when there's an audience. And also, and I know, Rashawn, you were very offended when you found this out, but when I'm doing a recording that isn't on video, will often just sort of play Candy Crush in the background while I'm talking. And Rashawn really thought that was not something that happened when I recorded with her. And was rather offended when she found out that I just do that. That's part of how my brain helps me to like focus on talking. I have to assume like a neurodivergent or ADD thing. But when you're on camera, you can't do that. And also we can see each other's faces, which changes the way we talk, because we'll take a moment and sort of stare at one another or make a face. And then I'm like, oh, wait, they can't hear us do that. This is just coming across as silence. But anyway, all that to say, of course, you can certainly still enjoy the audio, but I really do recommend, if you have the money to spare, coming to the live stuff is really fun, and getting to like participate and also get to know other patrons who are in the chat as well. I see people get chummy after a little while because they recognize each other's names. And I just, it's an interesting like development as I continue to grow the podcast, pulling in tools like that, because video has become a much bigger thing recently, in the past few years. It's just that video was understandably way behind sound, and it takes a different skill set as well to do the editing for that if you're going to do a certain kind of video, which I would love to do in theory. But let me tell you, kids, I will not be learning how. I figured out how to do the bare bones basics to put together like a TikTok video. That is it. But anyway, all that to say, become a patron, patreon.com/unspoiled. And we are going to say hi today to 4 people. Woo! We have got Stephanie Rattigan, Mhan00, Deanna Webster, and Nina. So welcome to all of you lovely, beautiful, brand new listeners. Or perhaps you're not brand new. Perhaps you've been a patron and you unsubscribed and you're resubscribing again, which certainly happens. But I hope that y'all are enjoying the coverage, doing Sookie Stackhouse for the $5 and up tier. And Rashawn, you've gotten caught up on that.
I am, yeah. I'm caught up. I actually, I know I have to wrap soon, but I actually started True Blood season 1. Once I got caught up, sweet. I was like, let me go back and watch this fucking show. And it's really funny because it's such a close recounting or retelling of the books, beat for beat. But there are some very subtle changes that the show made. And I had, since I still am not reading the books. I didn't know, but it's fun to be like, oh, the show went in a completely different direction for no real reason here in this moment. I wonder why they did that. So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, the first season is like almost exactly the first book. And that's kind of the only one. And then after that, they just go nuts. I joined a True Blood fan group on Facebook just because like it's sort of fun to have your finger on the fandom a little bit and see what they think of things. And also sometimes people will share amazing memes that you aren't going to get on your main feed because nobody's talking about True Blood anymore. And somebody shared a whole thing about Ginger today. Do you remember Ginger? And I'm not going to like, she works
Ginger
for Eric.
She's the one that had been glamored so many times. She was like basically like a flake, and like she was barely even here anymore. She'd been glamored so many times.
There's some that, you know, the whole thing with her in the show, none of that is in the book, but the show did some things that I was like, I really wish I knew what you were thinking with Lilith. Like that whole subplot was just nothing.
That was
but then
terrible.
There's stuff like the development of Tara and what they did with Ginger, and of course Lafayette becoming a way bigger character. And I'm like, all right, you guys knew some things. You did hit it out of the park occasionally. I'm really looking forward to watching those with Miles eventually.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you again so much for listening and supporting the show. We love you very much. Until next week, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.